Hey, security peeps, we are back with another special edition of Breaking into Cybersecurity here on Mondays with Dr. Dan. I am Renee Small, co host of the Breaking into Cybersecurity podcast series. I am a cybersecurity super recruiter, helping amazing people get into opportunities and helping leaders hire wonderful cybersecurity talent. Dan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Dan Schaefer, Peak Performance Strategies. I work with competitive edge strategies for people who want to win, for whom losing is not an option. Highly competitive people, both in business globally and in professional sports. And I find that there's not too much difference between professional sports and business except for speed. But realizing the stress that people are under today, and particularly in the cybersecurity field, it's a very unique position to be in because the attacks never stop.
Right.
The
Right.
attacks never stop. So it takes a whole new level of agility. Certainly, in people who are in the cybersecurity space already, who decide for one reason or another that they want to transition either for a way to move up within their field or to move into a different position in their field, or to write a book about their field. That's the kind of thing we help people do. And Renee and I have been doing that for years now with people.
Right.
So, the easiest, and I ask a fundamental question: what do you need to have happen right now that's not happening? And
Right.
what do we do to make it happen?
So Dan, I know over the past couple of weeks, because I think this is probably our 8th week or so. I think we've been doing this for at least 2 months now.
Right?
And you've been helping many, many people in the industry. A lot of you have been hitting Dr. Dan behind the scenes, which is fantastic. That's exactly what he wants. If you are looking to transition, one of the questions that keeps coming up, especially during this time of COVID-19, a little bit of uncertainty. But in this space, most of the people are actively being recruited and looking for opportunities. Some may have, had some untimely layoffs due to COVID-19. But overall, Dan, what the question for today is, when you're planning a transition, or if one comes to you unexpectedly, what should you be thinking about? What kinds of questions should you be asking for, to your future employer, and your future leaders? So that's where we're going to kick it off today.
Okay, great. Uh, that's a very important question because in some ways, the person who's recruiting you probably has a personal need for somebody like you to cover their back to make sure that they perform well. And so to find out what they need, what they want to have happen, looking at things like how long they've been in a position, what they need to have happen moving forward. And I've seen over the years with the merge with the Hewlett-Packard and Compaq, how senior executives in HP were recruited by people within their own company to move in a particular direction. But it takes a strategy, and we've talked about this before, and it kind of defies conventional wisdom. Most people have goal setting, they set goals. But what we talk about here is that everybody that I work with today is in 2025 working backwards. Where do you want to be? And let's look backwards for anything you could possibly do that would disrupt what you want to do. And realize that when the person, who are you talking to? What's their role? What do they want to have happen? Are they recruiting you for your technical skills, or is there a possibility that they're looking for you to manage people and to develop people that are in the company? And that's a huge factor today because, I find that most people, no matter what field they're in, if they're at the top of their field, they know way, and this goes for everybody on this call, way more than you know that you know. People discount very often common knowledge, stuff that they know that they take for granted. But for some people, it's not taking it for granted. It's very important stuff. And so how to identify what you do well is critical today. Because when you're coming into a situation where you're being interviewed, you have to really decide from your position, from your experience, is this company interviewing you or are you interviewing them? And so to put it in that perspective.
Yeah. Dan, I know a lot of times you talk about, there are a couple of things that you touched on that we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. And one is being in 2025, looking backwards, making sure it's something that, or ensuring that, whatever situation you're dealing with right now won't mess up where you are going to be in 2025. Another thing is around interviewing the company and having the company interview you, but interviewing the company. And I know that, or the leaders. And that's something that I know people tend to not focus on as much. So, what would be some things that you would recommend people think about, the types of questions for them to ask when they are looking to interview with a company and interview the leaders of the company?
Most of the people who are interviewing today, at least in the people that I've been working with, they seem to have a set of traditional questions, and they're all dealing in 2020. Everybody you're talking to today, I believe, is in 2020. It changes the whole dynamic when you take them out to 2025. So a simple question is you can say to somebody, look, if I were to give you a magic wand and you waved it and we were in 2025, tell me what that looks like. How big is your department? Where do you want to be? But in the cybersecurity space, it's what risks what challenges do you think are going to come down the pike in 2025? What do you think you're going to be facing? What's happening now that's going to be ramped up? Understanding that the pressure is never going to stop. That I described it to somebody the other day. I said it's like somebody deciding to go stand under Niagara Falls. The water never stops. And so it's understanding that the environment you're working in. So the need for agility, the need for flexibility, the need to want to learn more about what you're doing. A big challenge today is in management. When we found that with HP, because I don't know that you can manage with a traditional management style the way people did before. I have people moving from a management culture into a coaching culture. That does a couple of things. That catches errors way, way, way before they happen. It lets a manager understand what the person that they're dealing with does well and what it doesn't, and then to identify what their obstacles are. So, it's a fast track to winning. That's what this is about. I mean, everybody who's a cybersecurity professional or aspires to be one or is moving up is in probably one of the most competitive environments that you can be, because you're always competing, and you don't want to be a quarterback without a great offensive line because you'll get crushed. And that's exactly where we are. So the kind of questions, and again, questions that you ask an individual depend a lot on who they are, what they need to have happen. So what I do with my clients is we have a profile system. You profile a person you're talking to. Who are they? What do they need to know? Where do they want to go? Are they looking to move up? Are they working underneath somebody who is going to be moving on and they're going to take their spot? Or is the person who they report to going to take them with them? All of these dynamics take place. But the point is that, and the ultimate client here is the customer of the company you're interviewing with. They are depending on you to provide them with a safe environment to conduct their business, whatever their business is. And it becomes important to have resources around you in case something happens to protect your brand. Because I believe that everybody we're talking to here on this call is a CEO of their own company. They may not feel that way, but they are. They're the CEO of their own company. Some people I've spoken to have their own consulting companies. Some people develop them, but I've also spoken to people in these situations where they say, a lot of people are leaving our company. I said, okay. I said, so where are they going? Oh, I don't know. But you have to know where they go, particularly if they're good. So it's keeping track of people, because at some point in time, if you're a resource for another company, you can't do everything. So you're going to bring people with you who are qualified and capable, who you have confidence in, who trust you and are loyal to you. And so it's how do we put that together?
Right. So Dan, I'll touch on a couple different things, but the first one is being the CEO of your own company. And you and I have talked about this for 10, 12 years now.
Right.
And I know when you work with your athletes, your student athletes, your professional athletes, everyone that you work with, you talk about being the CEO of your own company, even when you are not a consultant or you don't have a consulting company and you're within an organization. So even if you're a full-time employee within an organization with no other external projects or anything like that, which is unusual for cybersecurity people. Typically, they always have something going on.
Right.
However, give some more detail or some insight into being the CEO of your own company, specifically when you're working inside of an organization.
I think it comes right back down to how you view yourself. See, it's very difficult to be in business today with everything that's going on, even before the pandemic. And it's dangerous, but it's dangerous to be in business and not know you're in business. See, I believe that everybody who takes their skill set, whatever it happens to be, into a company can either view themselves as an employee or can view themselves as a consultant to that company. They don't have to say it. I encourage everybody to get a business card. If you want to talk to me about that privately, how to do that, we could do it. But the point is that it's the way you approach a business. I would want somebody who came to work for me to really feel that they were running my company like they would run theirs. It's something we've talked about. Somebody comes in and says, how do I start this? How do I get somebody from 2020 to 2025? You can do that very quickly. And how it happens, it happens because most people have not been given permission to dream. See, I'm going to flip over into something with sports. I work with the subconscious mind a lot. When you say to somebody, here's what I want 2025 to look like, your subconscious mind says, really? I'm going to move in that direction. My job is to keep you out of its way. What gets in its way? Talk to a professional athlete. I need to increase my concentration. What stops you from increasing your concentration? I get distracted. What distracts me? Well, what really distracts me is the way I talk to myself. People need to listen to the way they talk to themselves and say, is that conversation productive or not? And take that and extrapolate that to anybody you operate with a team. If you're managing a team or directing a team, it becomes important to get this idea out to people that there's a different way to look at this. See, when I talk to a kid, and I have kids as young as 8 now who want to start a company, when an individual sees himself as the CEO of their own company, they realize that every decision they make is a business decision. What they eat, what they drink, what they smoke, what they're seeing with, who takes their picture, what they put on Facebook, what they post. Those are all behaviors that either work for their company or not. So, parents can say, do this, do that, do something else. But if the kid buys into the fact that this is his company, this is something he wants to do, they operate differently. So, and I can give you tons of examples on that. But the point is that it really comes back down to giving people a different way to think about things. Now, to use a coaching culture, there's some things that you have to do to be an effective coach in a coaching culture. See, what you need to do is you need to know what you really do well. That's the first part. What do you really, really do well? Most people that I've spoken to, even cybersecurity and global management and companies, they can't tell you. They say, well, you just accomplish it. I had a client in New Zealand who built a huge organization for Hewlett Packard. And I said to Mike, how did you do that? He says, I was just being myself. What does that mean? You know, because if somebody comes to him and he needs to develop the people underneath him, it's impossible to teach somebody something that you don't know that you know. And people, you operate automatically.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is, I would imagine it in the cybersecurity space, you really have to learn to honor your intuition. I believe that they have a sixth sense that something's going on, where something is coming from, how it happens, and they need to operate differently.
Yeah. Dan, a couple comments here before I ask you the next question. Namdi says, I love Dr. Dan's magic wand question. It is so applicable in the technology consulting space.
Right.
Tor says, being the CEO of your life, that thinking helps transform your personal and professional life, whether you are an employee, a consultant, an entrepreneur, etc.
Right.
Yep.
And so, if you could try this, take your last name. So, we could use Renee, who said a small group. Just write that and Google that and see if that domain name is available. Your name with the group. Now, if you did nothing but had a business card printed up with, say, the Jones Group, and you handed it to somebody, what's somebody going to say to you? What's this? That's all you want them to do, is ask you a question. Now, the question is what you come back with becomes important. And this is on a self-marketing strategy. When people ask me what I do, is I tell them that I sell mistakes. Nobody walks away. Who wants to buy a mistake? Well, somebody who doesn't want to make them. Can you think of anybody who's more on the front lines of selling mistakes than cybersecurity professionals? That's all they're doing. They come to a company and they say, here are the mistakes we're familiar with. We're not going to let them happen.
Right.
So then realizing that there's an invisible dynamic that takes place at every deal that somebody closes. It's called short-term discomfort versus long-term regret. I may not want to deal with Renee right now in building and constructing my cybersecurity team. But you know what I really don't want? I don't want to be in 2025 looking backwards saying, I really wish I called her on the phone. And that's exactly what this is about. This is about taking people out to a place where they want to be and let them identify the risks that get in their way. I mean, one of the things I do, Renee's familiar with this, I have an assessment that will show an individual every single place they'll screw up going forward. 30 minutes online. And so they know, and that's like putting a toe in the water of working with me to find out, do I want to be able to deal with this stuff and how do I make sense of it? But it's knowing mistakes before you go into a situation is really critical.
Yeah.
Because it costs a lot of money to make a mistake there. People say today, we sell solutions. Oh, okay. But you know what? If you bought the mistake beforehand and you didn't make the mistake, you wouldn't have to pay for the solution, because the solutions is so much more expensive than buying a mistake.
Right.
But look at what's the cost? The cost is enormous in cybersecurity. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And because you're constantly in touch with the executives now.
Yeah.
Know pretty much whatever is happening in the cybersecurity space, and they're getting your advice and your expertise in how to navigate this world.
It's how to talk to people. There are, when people go into an environment and they prepare to compete the way an athlete prepares to compete, and they don't just go in and wing it. I mean, no NFL football player goes in and just wings a play. Everything's planned and practiced over and over and over again. Some people think in business that they can just wing a presentation. I'll talk about what my product is and it'll be fine. Well, it's not. Because what happens today is that on my website is a presentation called The Cost of Myths. Somebody goes on it and clicks down. It takes every section. But what are the costs of myths? The myths are cost people a fortune. What do I, do I have 30 seconds to explain to somebody what I do? No, you only have 6. After 6 seconds, they're gone.
Somebody just made a comment about that, about your 6-second on LinkedIn. I saw that earlier. I can't remember his name. He just literally made that comment about not having 30 seconds, only having 6 seconds.
Right. So how does that work? Very simple. You say you're a cybersecurity professional to somebody. First of all, how many people that you're talking to really know what you do? Very, very few. Particularly me. I mean, I have a better sense of what you do, but the technology and the stuff that you use, so if you went into that, you'd lose people. But the fact is that what happens is in their brain is a narrative starts. Oh, I know other people in cybersecurity, and it goes on, and you've lost them. When I say to somebody, I sell mistakes, that stops people. So what are you talking about? It gets them to come back to the situations and mistakes that I help people avoid. One of the biggest mistakes on my mistakes list is sooner. People say to me, I should have called you sooner. Okay. So what I say to people is, I said this to a guy the other day who's a lawyer. I said, give me your mistakes list and I'll make it confusing. He said, well, why would you want to make my list confusing? I said, because that causes somebody to come back to you and ask you what you're talking about. But if you're, come back to the interviews, again, if you're sitting down with an interviewer and you have some sense of what they're going to ask, and sometimes it's really predictable what they're going to ask you. So when you go in with a prepared answer, it's a different, but the answer always has to be for them. It has to be what they personally need from you. What's your role got to be? Certainly cybersecurity, but what safety net are you going to provide for them? What security blanket are you going to provide for them? How do they know you're in there to cover their butt? And that's really what becomes important today. I found out, and it doesn't make any difference culturally, globally, it makes no difference.
Yeah.
I found out around the world when we worked with HP people. They said, I want somebody who's working with me who's going to cover me.
Yep. So comment from Bernadette, my friend. I love this statement, being CEO of my life. It's a game changer on how I approach things and what I spend my time on.
Right. But it's important to know, one of the biggest issues we work with athletes is to help them identify when they're distracted. What's a distraction? Here's a great thing on distraction. Everybody listening on the phone, on the call now, sit up straight in your chair and start to move your right foot clockwise, round and round, round and round, round and round, round and round, round and round. And while your right foot is going clockwise, draw a big number 6 in the air. See how your foot went backwards? You can't afford 1 second of a distraction. So when you can really focus on, I'm going into this environment, what could possibly distract me? If somebody really has to be on their A game with cybersecurity, and they have to be on their A game all the time, what distracts you from the A game? What's your A game like? I always say to somebody, particularly when teams are working together, they say we work as a team. I said, teamwork only works when everybody brings their A game. And when you trust that everybody's going to bring their A game. So, what did he say?
It's so funny. Ben is with us every week, and Ben said, here we go again with the feet and the 6s, because you can never do it. It always, you put your foot in the air, it always goes the wrong way. Ben, you're so right.
Well, Ben, when Renee and I have done programs for this in public with groups of people, there's always somebody in the audience who keeps trying it. What we do is we bring them up to the front of the room and have them sit in a chair and try it. But the question is, it's not, why does that work? The question is, does it make any difference? It just works. It's just like negative self-talk. When you hear negative self-talk over and over and over again, chattering in your head, if you think it's productive, fine. If you think trash talking yourself is fine, it's not. But if you do think that, but if you want to stop it, everybody goes, oh, how do I stop it? I don't want to do it. Well, is the easy way to stop it? Try it right now. Push your tongue to the roof of your mouth right now and try to think of something. When your tongue is on the roof of your mouth, you can't think of anything. So you can constantly shut it off to focus on what you need to focus on. Now, who uses this? Well, if you're a hockey goalie and a puck is coming at you 150 miles an hour and you want to be able to stop it and you don't want to be distracted by anything else in the stands, you got to come up with some tools to do that. I mean, as an example, I said to one of my goalies, how do you know when you're performing at your best? And I said, when I'm performing at my best, I don't hear any crowds. The puck is the size of a dinner plate, and the game moves very slowly. Anytime one of those three things change, I know I'm losing my concentration. And so I said, and then what do you do? They said, I hope that my concentration comes back. I said, hope is not a strategy. You can't hope. You have to do something. And these are practical tools that will help you do that. I have a strategy where somebody puts their thumb and index finger together. And when they do that with some suggestions that I give them, they can relax almost on the spot. So I've had people say, it works. I said, I know it works as people do it. I have a picture of an ice skater, professional ice skater, who said to me, she said, I would start a performance. I kind of feel nervous, put my thumb and index finger together, and it calms me down. After you do some suggestions that are structured around what you want to have happen.
Right.
But this is a competition. When you're going into a job interview or making a transition, what I suggest to people I work with is you get me an organizational chart. Let me look at the organizational chart. And where do you want to be on that chart? Where do you want to get there? What's in your way? What's going to help you get there? And, Renee and I have done this for years with people, because people are at the top of their game, depending on people underneath them. And when you look at it, there are people on the bottom who have moved away. And so you don't have the support you need. What's the mindset of the company you're going to?
Yeah.
Is it, can you learn? What can you learn there? Can you go in there to learn? And a lot of this stuff has to do with, personal interactions, human interactions with people. How do you build rapport with people?
Yeah.
Or how do you know if your tendency, without thinking about it, causes you not to build rapport?
People have challenges, and you touched on so many things: the unconscious competence, the when you did the assessment, really being able to show where challenges could come up, and blind spots. I know we used to talk about blind spots a lot. Not knowing how one may come off to the person above you, your peers, being able to influence. Like, there's so many different pieces to this. And like Dr. Dan said, really profiling the folks, especially when it comes to transitions and interviews, and, understanding who it is that you're dealing with, and bringing it all to the table, and being prepared not only from a technical perspective and from what you can do, but knowing the people that you're interviewing with and interacting with, and what's going on in their minds as well.
But each situation is different. There are no two situations that are the same, because the goals and objectives of the person who's interviewing you. I mean, if you could come in and present a superb resume and background and all, and if you didn't think about it, you might be threatening the person who's interviewing you, because they may want your position.
Yeah.
Or not. So it's a dance to play well with it, to make sure that but then the ultimate question is, if this is your consulting company, if you see yourself as the CEO of your own company, do you want the company you're interviewing with as your client? Maybe yes, maybe no.
It's such a different way to envision and think about companies, positions, roles overall. Being the CEO of your own company, like when you were talking to my son, and when he repeated back, which was so funny, what Dan said, in terms of making sure that he understands that every decision he makes is a business decision, so
Tell everybody how old he is.
he's 8. Talking about business decisions is so funny.
He said, we were on a conference call, and he says, "Can you help me grow my business?" I said, "What do you want to see?" So, but again, I have a person I work with who wanted a baseball career at age 8, and now he's one of the top athletes in the country. So the point is that it really is interesting how the subconscious mind will drag you in the direction you want to go.
Yeah. Well, he said he wants to take out Bill Gates, so I'm like, go for it. he wants to take him out. I'm like, yeah, mom needs to relax. You go do that. Let me just sit and hang out for the rest of my life.
but I said to him, what you want to be able to do is to look at the high school you're going to go to, and do they have the coursework that you want? You see, it's getting a kid, everybody. We've talked about this toolbox concept for years now. Everybody has a toolbox that they walk around with. You open a toolbox up, they're aware of the tools that are in the toolbox. Some tools are in there that they don't know that they have, that are very good, and they use them all the time. But the other thing is, when they come into a new environment, do they open a toolbox up and say, so any tools that you want in a box, I'll sort them out? Or do they push back on it? Don't tell me what to do. I don't. So it's different with everybody. But the most important thing is that to get yourself to the position you want to be in and where that position is. So I say that you don't look for the entry position that you're coming into a company in. It's where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Right.
What do you need to do to get there? What do you need to avoid doing to get there? What opportunities have passed you by that you can never recover?
Right.
What opportunities are right in front of you?
Right.
And what are the threats? What's the threat of doing nothing?
Yeah. It's some of, when I'm talking to candidates and leaders, it's what's next in your career. What are you looking to do? And then, to your point, a couple steps out. Like, it's not about really what's happening now. It's where this role can get you to your result that you're looking for in 2025. So Dan, we have we're at 11:58. We've been on for about almost 33 minutes. Is there anything else you want to talk to the folks about? You want to talk about your 888 program? And
if people go on my website, it's danschaferphd.com. You can look at an 888 program there. It's going to start on July 6th. It's going to be 8 o'clock in the morning for people, 7 to 8 in the morning for the East Coast, and same time for the West Coast. Probably going to limit it to 20 people, but it's going to be 8 keys to a competitive edge for 8 weeks straight. So I look at the beginning of the week, starting out, to give you some resources to work with through the week, and also some opportunities to get in touch with me and work on specific situations. But at the end of the day, it's about winning. I mean, people in cybersecurity have to win all the time. It's clearly one of the most competitive situations, because attackers never stop, and the blue team always has to win. So it's, how do you do that? And people I've spoken to in the last couple of weeks have told me how much the clients of the company they interview with depend on them to protect their resources, protect their background, protect their day, whatever it is.
Right.
So then the thing is, and I thought about what you do. You're like a builder. You're like somebody who's a construction person. You build teams for people. People don't know that they need a team. So somebody said to me this morning, who do you need to talk to? I said, I need to talk to somebody who maybe even doesn't even know they need to talk to me. And all of these conversations are in confidence. I don't talk to anybody about anything. As a matter of fact, one of my biggest challenges is my clients never talk about me. So they'll never say, oh, call this guy up because he helped me get better at what I do. No, by the way, particularly. And the other thing is, if anybody on here happens to be a golfer, just Google golfandthemindgame.com. Because I guarantee you 3 to 6 strokes off your golf game without ever touching the club over the phone. And it's amazing how that works.
Yep. Ben says, I come away from each of these streams with a series of uncomfortable questions to ask myself. Thank you for getting those thought process kicked off each week.
Well, let me bring something about discomfort. Anybody who's a skier, tell me what happens when you start to go down a slope and you start to traverse the slope, and all of a sudden you feel your skis on the ice. And you know there's powder on the other side where you can turn, but right now you're on ice and your edges are chattering away. What do? You don't do anything. You become comfortable with being uncomfortable until you get to where you can turn. So being uncomfortable is not the issue. It's knowing that you have some strategies to come out of it on the other side and a plan.
Dan, your website, danschaferphd.com, right?
Right. So up on the subject bar, there's 888 programs there. There's a subscription page. It explains what I do and how people can work with me. And then if you go to the website, golfandthemindgame.com, that's a lot of fun.
Yep.
If somebody's looking for a gift to give somebody for Father's Day.
Oh, yeah, that's a great Father's Day gift.
Yeah.
That really is. That would be it.
If you have a company and you decide, if you're a marketing person, you decide you want to attract high net worth clients to your environment, we drew 200 CEOs in 2 days in Virginia for Xerox.
Yeah, you were in this area. You were down in
Manassas.
Yep.
But now we can do this by phone, by Zoom calls.
Yeah.
So, and I'm open to call. You know, it doesn't cost anything to call me. Text me first, set them a call, and away we go.
If anyone wants Dan's number, you know where to find me. Jenny says +1 on the uncomfortable questions, Ben. Thank you, Renee and Dr. Dan, for this great session. Thank you, Jenny. Jenny's going to be on with us later this week, I believe.
Okay.
Talking to us about getting in the industry. So, yeah, Dan, we are at time. So I want to make sure everyone knows, if you would like to connect with Dan and you didn't get his info, reach out to me. I have sent a ton of people his information behind the scenes, and they have been working with Dan as shared. Dan has been working with, especially in the cybersecurity executive space for a while, and leaders. So he understands a lot of our challenges and what we are going through, and what especially you all, the folks that are literally on the front lines in cybersecurity, are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And especially during this transition time where people are either deciding what they want to do next. It's a typical time for people to make moves as a whole. And then with COVID-19 kind of thrown on top of there, different companies are doing layoffs. So if you find yourself in a position where you're trying to determine what you want to do next with your career, reach out to Dan. He's a huge text fan, so I'll give you his number.
I don't get emails I catch emails a couple of times a day, but the text, I get them right away. And the other thing too is that, you know, for the Hewlett Packard people I work with, setting up your own consulting company was a safety net. So it's to build a safety net for yourself.
Yep, exactly.
So all right, thanks again for today. It was great. Thanks to everybody. Thanks for all your comments, and get back to me. You know where I am.
Yep. We know where Dan is. If you need his info, reach out to me, and we will see you here next Monday on Mondays with Dan. Dan, just like you have your own show. Bye, everybody.
Bye,
See you
guys.
next week. See you next week with Dan.